Welcome to the Deep Dive. We've got a fantastic stack of sources. You shared articles, research, personal notes, all diving deep into the exciting, sometimes slightly overwhelming world of upcoming smartphones.
Yeah, lots to get through.
We're talking market trends and, of course, the heavyweights, Apple and Samsung.
That's right. It's a really good mix. Everything from whispered rumors about future devices to hard data on the industry and insights from people actually using and thinking about these phones.
Our mission in this deep dive is simple. We're going to unpack these sources together. We want to pull out the absolute most important stuff, the core nuggets of knowledge, to help you get crystal clear on what's happening, especially as you're thinking about your next big upgrade, coming from a phone you've wisely held on to since 2018. 6 years is serious longevity.
It really is. And what's fascinating is that upgrading from a 2018 device means you're in for a truly massive leap, no matter which modern flagship you choose. But understanding what's potentially around the corner, like what's rumored for 2025, can definitely sharpen that decision about whether to jump now or maybe wait a bit longer.
Exactly. We've got juicy details on rumored features for the iPhone 17 Pro series, analyst predictions for the Samsung Galaxy S26 Ultra, a look at the big picture processors, foldables,
All the good stuff.
and even those crucial insights straight from real users wrestling with these same questions.
It's really all here to help someone in your exact position weigh the options between these powerful ecosystems and see the future landscape.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Starting with the rumored future of Apple's top-tier phone.
The iPhone 710 Pro and Pro Max.
Right. Reports suggest we're looking at a September 2025 launch for those. That's Apple's usual rhythm, isn't it?
Pretty much bang on schedule. So these sources are speculating on something about 4 months out, maybe a little more, depending on when they were written.
That timeline gives us plenty of time for the rumor mill to churn, and what's coming out now hints at some, well, interesting changes.
Such a...
Like design tweaks. One source points to a potential shift in the rear camera, set up a new bar, housing the sensors, flash, and the LiDAR scanner.
A bar, like across the back?
Possibly. Or maybe move to one side. The source wasn't totally clear, but a change from the current square.
Any change to that camera bump design usually ties into significant changes within the camera system itself, or how components are laid out inside.
That makes sense.
It could be a visual clue to the big camera upgrades that are also being rumored.
And speaking of materials, there's talk of moving away from the all-titanium build we saw in the 15 and 16 Pro models.
Oh, really? Back to what?
Maybe returning to a mix of aluminum and titanium.
Interesting. That could affect things like the phone's weight or feel in the hand, maybe durability. Or, as one source cautiously notes, it could potentially be influenced by cost considerations.
Ah, the cost factor.
Especially with those big question marks around future pricing due to potential tariffs on chips, and I always looms large.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting, and it's a major theme across these sources. The cameras. Looks like they're getting a massive overhaul.
Yeah, the telephoto lens, the one you use for zooming in, is particularly highlighted in the leaks, rumored to be getting a substantial upgrade.
Substantial is right. We're talking a jump from the 12 megapixels on the iPhone 16 Pro models all the way up to a massive 48 megapixels on the 17 Pro series.
Wow, 48 megapixels for the telephoto.
Yeah. That would bring its resolution in line with the ultra-wide and the main-wide sensors.
Okay, that could be huge for detail.
Potentially boosting both the clarity of your digital zooms and the quality of optical zoom shots.
That's a big move for Apple. Having all 3 main rear cameras at 48 MP unlocks a lot of flexibility in how the phone processes images, handles detail when you crop, improves quality across different zoom ranges. A lot of potential there.
And get this. For the first time ever in an iPhone Pro, leaks are pointing to 8K video recording capability.
8K. Finally joining the club.
Seems like it. One source even speculates this could be at a super smooth 60 frames per second.
Whoa, 8K 60. That's intense. Competitors like Samsung have offered 8K for a few years, but Apple typically waits until they feel they can nail the quality and usability.
Right.
Adding 60 fps would make that high-resolution video look incredibly fluid, though it's going to be super demanding on processing power and storage.
No kidding. The front-facing camera, your selfie cam, isn't being ignored either. It's rumored to jump from the current 12 megapixels to 24 megapixels.
Okay, double the resolution. That means noticeably sharper selfies, clearer video calls, higher quality vlogs, presumably.
Exactly. A significant step up for front camera quality, which is, let's face it, increasingly important for how people use their phones these days.
True. On the display side, the dynamic island, that pill-shaped area at the top, is rumored to shrink a bit.
How much?
Maybe 10–15% smaller, according to one source.
So not gone, but smaller.
Right. Any reduction there means less screen obstruction when you're watching videos or playing games, giving you a little more immersive full-screen real estate. It's an incremental change, but probably a welcome one for most users.
Under the hood, the power upgrades continue, as you'd expect. The new A19 Pro chip is anticipated.
A19 Pro, and likely based on TSMC's next-gen 3-nanometer manufacturing process, right?
It's the word.
Think of the process size, like 3 nanometers, as how tightly they can pack transistors onto the chip. A smaller number usually means the chip can be more powerful and more efficient at the same time.
More bang for your battery buck.
Exactly. It can do more work using less battery and potentially manage heat better, which is always crucial for sustained performance.
Apple also seems to be really accelerating its development of in-house components. Remember the C1 chip in the iPhone 16?
Their first own Wi-Fi 5G chip, yeah.
Well, the 17 Pro series is rumored to get its own internally developed communication chip.
Taking even more control. This is expected to be a key factor in maximizing battery life because communication radios are a big power draw.
Makes sense.
It's also rumored to bring Wi-Fi 7 support. Faster, more reliable wireless if your router supports it. Apple designing these chips themselves just gives them tighter control over optimization and how everything works together.
And here's another potentially big one. For performance, according to the sources, RAM.
Oh, yeah. What about RAM?
It's rumored to jump significantly from the current 8 GB up to a whopping 12 GB.
12 gigs? Seriously, that would be a first for an iPhone.
It would.
That amount of RAM puts it squarely in line with high-end Android flagships like the Galaxy S25 Ultra currently. More RAM is like having a bigger workspace for the chip. It helps tremendously with multitasking, keeping more apps open in the background.
And probably essential for those Apple Intelligence features they're pushing.
Absolutely, especially the stuff that relies heavily on on-device processing. 12 GB would make a real difference there.
Okay, so you put all these factors together, the potential new chip, the new communication chip, maybe a slightly bigger battery.
Yeah.
It leads one source to predict the overall battery life could be the best ever on an iPhone, potentially even beating the iPhone 16 Pro Max and maybe the Galaxy S25 Ultra.
That's a bold claim, but the logic tracks. It's not just one thing. It's the rumored slightly thicker design, maybe allowing a larger battery cell.
Did they finally break the 5,000 milliliter barrier? That's common on Android, but Apple hasn't gone there.
Maybe. Plus, the efficiency of the new OLED display, the A19 Pro chip itself, and that new in-house communication chip. It's a multi-pronged attack on battery drain.
One source even throws in the possibility, and they stress this isn't confirmed yet, of using carbon battery technology.
Carbon batteries? That's interesting. Supposedly could offer better performance and efficiency than standard lithium-ion, even at similar capacities.
If those rumors around capacity and efficiency stack up, especially with potential new battery tech, yeah, that could indeed be the standout feature for many users looking for maximum longevity.
Definitely a key selling point if true.
Now, the big question mark in all of this, according to one source, price.
Always the elephant in the room with Apple.
While the goal might be to keep the current starting prices, $1,000 for the base Pro, $1,200 for the Pro Max, potential tariffs on chips manufactured in specific regions could force those prices up.
Ugh. That just highlights how global economics and tricky supply chain issues can directly impact the sticker price you see at the store. The semiconductor industry is so concentrated, it makes it vulnerable to that stuff.
Yep. Okay, so that's the potential picture for the next iPhone, looking pretty loaded with camera and performance upgrades. How does Samsung look like it's planning to compete with the S26 Ultra? Let's shift gears.
Okay, Samsung. Sources suggest the Galaxy S26 Ultra needs some serious upgrades to match the rumored capabilities of that iPhone 17 Pro we just discussed.
And the camera system, again, seems to be a key battleground here.
Always is between these two. One analysis we looked at makes a really interesting point. They note that while the current Galaxy S25 Ultra technically boasts higher telephoto specs on paper, a 10MP lens with 3x zoom and a 50MP lens with 5x zoom.
Sounds right.
Compared to the rumored iPhone 17 Pro's single 48MP telephoto at maybe 3.5x zoom. Well, in real-world comparisons, Apple often gets amazing results out of their hardware through software optimization. Megapixels aren't everything.
True, the processing is key.
But the rumors for the S26 Ultra suggest Samsung is indeed bumping up the numbers across the board. We're talking a 200MP main sensor, potentially.
Still 200MP.
A 50MP ultra-wide, a 50MP telephoto with maybe 3.5x optical zoom, and another 50MP telephoto rumored with 8x optical zoom.
An 8x optical, that's quite a reach.
Yeah, though that same source expresses some uncertainty specifically about whether the 8x zoom lens will actually make the final cut. But if this array does materialize, especially with multiple high-res telephotos, it could be formidable on paper. The question is how it all performs in practice compared to those rumored iPhone gains.
Right. And what about video?
Well, Samsung has had 8K recording for years, but one source points out they might need to improve the overall quality and usability of their 8K video to really compete if Apple brings a polished 8K 60fps offering to the 17 Pro.
Good point. It's not just about having the feature, but how well it works.
Exactly. There are also certain camera technologies Apple uses that Samsung hasn't widely adopted yet. Things like sensor shift image stabilization.
That's where the sensor itself moves to counteract shape, right?
Precisely. Helps keep photos and video steady even if your hands aren't perfectly still. Or dual pixel autofocus, which helps the camera lock onto subjects really quickly and accurately.
And things like a quad LED flash or the LiDAR sensor on the back.
Yeah, LiDAR improves low-light focus and depth sensing for things like portrait mode and AR apps. Samsung incorporating some of these could enhance their camera system's performance in key areas where Apple currently has an edge.
However, it's not all looking like upgrades for the S26 Ultra, according to some sources. One opinion piece we saw speculates on potential compromises.
Like what?
Like the battery capacity possibly remaining stuck at 5,000 mAh for the 7th generation in a row.
Oof. 7 years at 5,000 mAh. That same source probably views this as a potential disappointment, right? Especially when competitors like OnePlus are pushing much larger batteries, like 6,000 mAh or even more.
Yeah, they felt a small increase to, say, under 5,400 mAh, while maybe possible, still wouldn't really address this perceived lag compared to others.
That could be a sore spot for power users.
And adding fuel to that fire, that same source speculates about the possible removal of the S Pen slot from the S26 Ultra.
Wait, removal of the S Pen slot? Wow, that would be a massive change.
Really neat.
The S Pen is such a core differentiator for the Ultra line, especially for users who draw, sketch, take tons of notes, removing that integrated slot.
Especially if they aren't making major strides in battery capacity.
Yeah, that could be seen by some as stripping away a premium feature without a compelling trade-off, potentially alienating that key user base, as that source suggests. Big gamble if true.
On a more positive note for the S26 Ultra, though, it might be the only model in its family globally to feature a high-end Qualcomm Snapdragon processor.
Ah, maybe the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 2.
Perhaps. That would be a win for raw performance.
Definitely. Relying solely on the Snapdragon chip for their top-tier global model helps them keep pace with Apple's chip advancements and avoids the performance differences you sometimes get when different regions get different processors, like Exynos versus Snapdragon.
Good point. Also, one source speculates Samsung might decide against including an under-display front camera on the S26 series.
You mean the camera hidden under the screen?
Yeah. Judging the technology isn't quite ready yet.
And you know what? That could actually be a good thing for picture quality. Under-display camera tech is still maturing and often results in compromised selfies compared to a standard hole-punch camera.
True.
So focusing resources elsewhere for now might be a smart call to ensure overall camera performance isn't sacrificed just for that cleaner look.
So what's fascinating about the S26 Ultra picture from these sources is this real mix, isn't it? Potential leaps forward, particularly in camera specs, but alongside these concerns about potential stagnation in battery life and the rumored loss of a really key feature like the integrated S Pen.
Absolutely. It really shows the different pressures Samsung might be facing in developing their next flagship. They need to innovate, push boundaries, but maybe also navigate certain physical limitations or cost constraints that could lead to some tough trade-offs.
Okay, let's step back now and look at the bigger picture. What's happening in the broader smartphone market that's shaping the landscape for devices like the ones we just talked about?
Yeah.
Let's touch on processors, the engines, and the rapidly evolving world of foldables.
Right, processors.
Yeah.
Or system on a chip. So it's basically the brain of the phone. They're crucial. According to one report, the global SoC market is absolutely massive.
And it's dominated by just a few key players, right?
Pretty much. MediaTek actually leads with about 34% market share globally. Apple is next at 23%, and Qualcomm holds around 21%.
Interesting that MediaTek is on top. And the leading processors expected in 2025, The ones you'll likely find in next year's top phones include Apple's rumored A19 Pro we discussed,
Qualcomm's Snapdragon 8 Gen 4, MediaTek's Dimensity 9400, and Samsung's Exynos 2400. Those are the big contenders.
and the major trends driving innovation in these processors directly impact what your phone can actually do.
For sure. We're seeing increased AI acceleration that's dedicated chip power for faster intelligent assistance, better photo and video processing, enabling new on-device AI features without relying solely on the cloud.
There's also a big push for gaming optimization, better graphics, smarter ways to manage heat so your phone doesn't throttle performance during long gaming sessions.
And crucially, improved efficiency. Chips need to do more work without draining the battery faster or needing massive batteries that make phones bulky. And of course, seamless integration of 5G support across more models is standard now.
One report also mentioned supply chain diversification as a key trend.
Yeah, influenced by how concentrated semiconductor manufacturing is in Eastern Asia. It highlights those geopolitical and economic factors that can influence everything from chip availability to, like we mentioned earlier, potential device pricing due to tariffs or disruptions.
Okay, switching gears to another major trend, foldable smartphones. One report paints a clear picture of rapid growth here,
Oh yeah, how rapid.
estimating the market size will jump significantly from roughly USD 33.6 billion in 2025 to over USD 74 billion by 2030.
Wow, more than double in 5 years. That's a compound annual growth rate of over 17%. It really shows how quickly this form factor is moving from niche curiosity to something more mainstream.
What's driving this growth? Demand for innovative new gadgets? Sure. But also practical uses.
Like
Foldables are great for gaming and entertainment because of their larger screens when unfolded. They tap into the growing popularity of phablets, devices that bridge the gap between a phone and a small tablet.
And the technology itself is getting better, right?
Right.
Flexible displays.
Exactly. Key to all of this is the ongoing advancement in flexible display technology, primarily OLED, making these screens more durable, brighter, and more vibrant, while still being able to bend reliably.
Here's a really interesting insight from the sources. Microsoft did some internal research suggesting that using 2 screens can significantly boost productivity.
Like having multiple monitors on your computer.
Precisely. That insight helps explain the why behind foldables beyond just the novelty factor. It points to a genuine use case for people who need more screen real estate on the go for work or multitasking, fueling demand for these multi-screen or foldable devices.
Of course, there are still things holding foldables back, according to the sources. The high price tags are still a big one.
Definitely not cheap yet.
The complexity of manufacturing these things and the cost of the raw materials needed for those flexible screens and hinges.
These are the hurdles that need to come down for foldables to become truly mass-market devices, accessible to more people than just early adopters or those with big budgets.
Asia-Pacific is identified as the fastest-growing region for foldable smartphones. And the market players are growing too. Samsung, Huawei, Motorola, Royal, Microsoft are key names.
Plus, others like Google and Xiaomi are jumping in with their own devices. Samsung specifically highlighted its foldable devices like the Z Flip 6 and Z Fold 6 as examples of their focus on durability and function in this space. They're really pushing it.
The increasing competition is good news for consumers, though. It drives innovation faster and, hopefully, should lead to lower prices eventually as the tech matures.
And it presents you with more options than just traditional slab phones when it's finally time to upgrade from that 2018 model.
So let's bring this all back to your situation. You're upgrading from a 2018 device, and you're thinking about a phone, headphones, and a smartwatch. The ecosystem you choose, Apple or Samsung, becomes really, really important.
Absolutely critical decision. The sources provide a good comparison here. Apple is known for its seamless integration. All the devices just work together, almost effortlessly.
Yeah, that famous "it just works" factor.
Right. There's consistency in the user experience across iPhone, iPad, Mac, Watch. Strong privacy and security features like end-to-end encryption, Face ID or Touch ID, the Find My network. Plus, those exclusive features like AirDrop for easy file sharing, FaceTime, AirPlay for streaming, they work beautifully within the ecosystem.
The trade-offs with Apple, as the sources note, are usually a higher upfront cost for the hardware, less customization freedom compared to Android,
You're pretty much stuck with the grid of icons mostly.
and generally less compatibility if you want to connect easily with non-Apple devices or use different services.
On the flip side, you have Samsung, running on Android with their One UI software layered on top. They offer a much wider variety of devices, including smart home appliances, TVs, fridges, not just phones and watches.
A much broader hardware range.
You get significantly more customization options with Android widgets, launchers, default apps, you name it. There's generally better cross-platform compatibility, especially with Windows computers and Google services.
And they push innovative hardware features like foldable phones and Samsung DeX.
Right. DeX lets you plug your phone into a monitor and use it almost like a desktop computer. Pretty neat for productivity.
Plus, Samsung offers a much wider range of price points beyond just the $1,000 flagships, making their ecosystem potentially more accessible if you want to add other connected devices later without breaking the bank.
Potential downsides mentioned for Samsung. Sometimes the software experience can feel a bit more fragmented because they rely more on third-party apps and services integrating well. Historically, their software update support wasn't as long as Apple's.
Though they've gotten much better there recently, haven't they?
Huge improvements. Now offering 4 to even 7 years of OS and security updates on many flagships, which is fantastic. And yes, sometimes you'll find pre-installed apps from Samsung or carriers, so-called bloatware, though you can usually disable or uninstall most of it.
So, ultimately, as one source perfectly summarizes, deciding which ecosystem is best is really about your personal preferences and what aligns with how you live and use technology.
Exactly. Do you prioritize that seamless, secure, consistent experience? That probably points towards Apple. Or is more customization, versatility across a wider range of devices, and features like DeX or foldables more appealing? That leans towards Samsung.
And longevity is clearly a top priority for you, given you've kept your current phone since 2018. That's amazing discipline.
Seriously impressive. On this front, both brands' flagships are built to last nowadays.
Apple has that long-standing reputation for extended software support. One source suggests up to 7 years for some models, which keeps the devices secure and getting new features for a very long time. Their phones also tend to hold their resale value extremely well.
Yeah, easier to trade in for a decent amount later.
Samsung, as we said, has significantly closed the gap on software support, now also offering 4 to 7 years on many of their high-end phones, while Android phones generally depreciate faster than iPhones.
True.
One practical point that came up in user discussions is that Samsung often offers very generous pre-order promotions and bundles.
Oh yeah, like free storage upgrades or free Galaxy Buds or big discounts on watches if you buy them together.
Exactly. That can significantly reduce the effective cost of getting into their ecosystem compared to Apple, which tends to stick more to trade-in value discounts rather than big upfront bundles. That's a real-world financial factor to weigh.
Definitely something to keep an eye on during launch periods.
And speaking of user discussions, there were a few specific points that seemed really relevant to someone like you, making this decision after 6 years away from the flagship market.
Okay, like what practical things?
For instance, the concern about the green line issue on some Samsung screens popped up in user chats. People talk about it.
Ah, yes, the dreaded green line.
And the general consensus there, it seems to be viewed as a relatively rare manufacturing defect, not something affecting every phone by any means.
Right. It's not guaranteed to happen.
Right. Potentially linked for some users to heat generated during software updates. One user tip was actually to update in a cool environment, maybe avoid doing it while charging overnight in a hot room.
Interesting tip.
It's usually covered under warranty if it does happen, though, as with any warranty claim, dealing with service centers can sometimes be a hassle. But crucially, many users report never experiencing it at all across multiple Samsung phones.
So something to be aware of, but maybe not a deal breaker unless you're really unlucky.
Exactly. Also, if you're someone who draws or works with illustrations you mentioned that might be relevant for you, the S Pen on Samsung Ultra models is consistently mentioned as a definite advantage.
Yeah, it offers a level of precision and integrated note-taking and drawing features that you just don't get on an iPhone.
Although, one user did point out a change in recent models. Apparently, they removed the low-power Bluetooth functionality from the S Pen.
Oh, so you can't use it as a remote control for the camera shutter or presentations anymore?
Seems like it. But its core drawing and writing capability, the main reason most people use it for creative work, remains fully intact. That sounds like the important part for your potential use case.
Good distinction. What else came up?
The idea of iPhones overheating. That was mentioned, particularly regarding the 15 Pro model when it first launched last year.
Right, there was some noise about that initially.
But user feedback suggests this was much less of an issue with the subsequent 16 lineup, implying that performance tuning and thermal management can improve significantly year over year or even with software updates.
So early launch issues sometimes get smoothed out.
Seems that way. And for a long time, Android user thinking about switching to iOS, which you might be, coming from 2018, One user who made that exact jump shared their experience.
How did it go?
They said it can feel a bit unnatural or restricted initially compared to the sheer flexibility and openness you get used to on Android over many years.
Yeah, I can see that. Less tinkering possible on iOS.
Their strong recommendation, and it's a really good one, is to try the iPhone out extensively in person before committing. Go to a store, play with it, get a feel for the software, how it handles daily tasks, and see if it actually clicks for you.
Sound advice for any big platform switch.
Finally, a recurring theme across many user discussions, kind of summing things up, is that modern flagships from both brands, Apple and Samsung, are just really, really good phones now.
The bar is incredibly high across the board.
Exactly. The year-over-year differences between generations are sometimes perceived by users as less dramatic, feeling more of the same to some people, especially compared to the huge leaps you saw maybe 5-10 years ago.
And the insight drawn from that is that waiting for the absolute latest model might not always be necessary to get a fantastic, long-lasting experience.
Right, especially if you can find a better price or a great deal on the previous generation phone right after the new one launches. That's a practical angle to consider, especially given your focus on value and longevity over having the absolute bleeding edge.
Good point. Getting last year's flagship can be a very smart move financially.
So, wrapping this all up, what does all of this mean for you as you weigh your next move from your trusty 2018 device?
Well, we've deep dived into the leaked features, pointing to a potentially very powerful iPhone 17 Pro series, major camera upgrades, new chips, maybe game-changing battery life. We've looked at analyst predictions for the Samsung Galaxy S26 Ultra, highlighting its own camera ambitions but also potential challenges around the battery and maybe even the S Pen slot.
We've explored the market forces like processor advancements driving AI and gaming, and the exciting rise of foldables, which broaden your future options beyond just the standard rectangle. And we've pulled in those really valuable real-world insights from users grappling with these exact same trade-offs and ecosystem questions.
It seems clear both Apple and Samsung are pushing hard on innovation, especially in camera tech, chasing higher quality sensors, better zoom, features like 8K video and processing power with next-gen chips designed for speed, efficiency, and AI. The foldable market is definitely poised for significant growth, adding exciting new form factors to consider.
For you, coming from a 2018 phone, honestly, either path a modern Apple flagship or a modern Samsung flagship is going to represent a massive, transformative upgrade in performance, camera capabilities, display quality, and built-in longevity with much longer software support than you're used to.
Huge leap either way.
The core decision really seems to boil down to prioritizing what matters most to you personally over the next, say, 6 years. Is it Apple's renowned, seamless integration between devices, their strong privacy focus, that consistent premium feel, and potentially industry-leading battery and video capabilities coming next year?
Or is it Samsung's versatile, highly customizable Android platform, their wider device ecosystem including smart home tech, the potential S Pen benefits if you do illustration work, and often more flexible pricing and aggressive promotions, all while keeping an eye on those potential, if maybe rare, concerns about battery stagnation or screen issues down the line?
Both brands are also increasingly focusing on integrating AI features, as we mentioned. That's becoming a major trend across the entire market. The specific flavor of AI, how useful it is, how it integrates into daily tasks, might also become a bigger differentiator as we move forward.
Yeah, how Apple Intelligence stacks up against whatever Google and Samsung offer long-term will be interesting to watch.
So here's maybe a final thought for you to consider as you mull over this big decision. Given that both high-end ecosystems now offer truly excellent performance and impressive longevity, and the year-over-year upgrades on core features can sometimes feel more incremental than revolutionary, how much do the specific rumored specs of next year's phones truly weigh against the overall ecosystem fit, the software experience, and the long-term usability that you need for the next 6 years or more?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Balancing future-proofing against present-day needs and ecosystem preference.